Obviously, our lives serve also for maintaining something great or small in the world. This idea, expressed in the ancient manuscript, so captivated the philosopher Atarnach that thereafter he devoted himself wholeheartedly to the study of only this aspect of the question which had interested him. This idea served as the basis for his whole further plausible theory, which, after minute researches during several years and elaborate experimental verifications of his own conclusions, he expounded in his chief work under the name "Why Do Wars Occur on the Earth?" I became acquainted also with this theory of his. It was indeed near to reality. All the suppositions of this Kurd Atarnach were very similar to the great fundamental cosmic law Trogo-Autoegocrat existing in our universe, which law I explained to you in more or less detail when I was speaking about the holy planet Purgatory. In this theory of the philosopher Atarnach, it was very definitely proved that there exists in the world, without any doubt, a law of the reciprocal maintenance of everything that exists, and that for this reciprocal maintenance certain chemical substances also serve, with the help of which this process for the spiritualization of beings, that is to say, life, is carried out. And these chemical substances serve for the maintenance of all that exists only after the given life ceases, that is, when a being dies. With the help of very many elucidatory logical confrontations, it was also fully proved in the theory of Atarnach that at certain periods there must infallibly proceed on the earth such a definite quantity of deaths as in their totality will yield vibrations of a definite degree of power. Once, when at a general meeting of the beings members of this society, the earth is equally free for all, this anything but ordinary terrestrial three-brained being, who was also the elected representative from the whole population of the country called Kurdistan, expounded this theory of his very eloquently and in great detail at the request of his fellow members. Then great confusion and agitation proceeded among the members of this society. They were so struck with this theory of his that at first, as is said there, a sepulchral silence prevailed among them for quite a time, and plunged into stupor, none of them could even stir. And only after the lapse of rather a long time, such a great noise and hullabaloo arose among them, as if the saving of each one's life depended on the degree of his excitement and its outer manifestations. The result of it all was that late in the evening of the same day they unanimously decided to elect from their midst several learned beings, jointly to investigate thoroughly the details of this theory which had struck them, and afterwards to make a detailed report upon it to the General Assembly. From the very next day, those elected learned members of the society, the earth is equally free for all, very earnestly set to work to familiarize themselves with the theory of this Atarnach. But to the misfortune of all three-brained beings of future times arising on this ill-fated planet, it turned out that although all the elected learned members were also already advanced in years, and those malignant functions which in the beings of the earth make their being, so to say, jealous and greedy, were almost atrophied in them, yet for various reasons, chiefly owing to their abnormal education, certain of them, it seems, had not yet acquired enough ground to be convinced of the non-actualizability of their dreams, which they owed to that notorious abnormal education of theirs, with the result that they were still not yet sufficiently disillusioned to be able to be fully impartial and just. In consequence of this, From that very same day, as they gradually became familiar with the details of this astonishing theory, they began to get into the state of typical beings of the earth. That is to say, they began to forget the extraordinary hypothesis that had struck them, which was mentioned in that theory, and began gradually to return, as is proper to three-brained beings there, to their former typically subjective and therefore always changeable conviction, and immediately split into two opposite parties. Some of these began without any logical criticism to take convincingly on faith all the hypotheses made in this theory. Others, however, did not fail, as is in general proper to most of the learned beings of the earth, to speak and to prove quite the opposite of these hypotheses. And as a result, they worked themselves up into a state of enmity, not only against the theory of Atarnach, but even personally against him himself. In short, my boy, instead of these learned members who were elected for the detailed study of the theory of Atarnach, helping the other members of their society to get out of their confusion and agitation and to unify their disputes among themselves, they brought still more bewilderment into their notions, and gradually, in the common presence of each separate member of this earnest society, data began to arise automatically for two totally opposite convictions. The first of these convictions was that everything takes place precisely according to the theory of the philosopher Atarnach. That is to say, that there must necessarily proceed wars and civil wars on the earth quite independently of the personal consciousness of men. And the second conviction was that which all the members of the society had already previously had, namely, that if they succeeded in carrying out the program which their society had set itself, this evil also, which proceeded on their planet, might be destroyed root and branch, and everything might proceed in a desirable way. It was just from that time that discussions, quarrels, and disturbances arose among all the members of that society. And in this case also the same began to proceed, as I already mentioned, and as had in general long before become customary there. Those quarrels and disturbances of theirs gradually spread also among the ordinary beings there, in this case to the citizens of the city of Mausolopoulos, and were the cause of the inflaming of their abnormal psyche. And I do not know how all this would have ended if the brothers of the society, the assembly of the enlightened, had not also just then arrived there and had not taken a hand in this affair. Thanks to their influence, all the members of this serious society gradually calmed down and started anew, peaceably and seriously, to ponder and deliberate upon just what to do in the future. The result of all their serious deliberations and ponderings was that they unanimously elected Atarnach as their chief director, and begged him to help them to find an issue from this situation. After several meetings already directed by the Kurd philosopher Atarnach himself, the following categorical conclusion was unanimously arrived at. According to the laws of nature, there must periodically always proceed on the earth, independently of the will of men, wars and civil wars. And this is because during certain periods there is required for nature a greater quantity of deaths. In view of this, we are all with much grief, but with inevitable inner resignation,